Question 1. Who is accountable for maximizing the value of the product resulting from the work of the Scrum team? A. The developers. B. The Scrum Master. C. The product owner. D. The stakeholders. Answer: C. The product owner. The product owner is solely accountable for maximizing the value of the product that the Scrum team delivers. This involves effectively managing the product backlog, ensuring its transparency, clarity, and ordering, so that the developers are always working on the most valuable items. Think of the product owner as the voice of the customer and business, constantly prioritizing what brings the most benefit. To succeed, the product owner must have a deep understanding of the market, customers, and business objectives. Always remember that maximizing product value is the product owner's unique accountability. Question 2. Which of the following best describes the purpose of the daily Scrum? A. To report progress to the Scrum Master. B. To identify impediments and assign tasks for the day. C. To inspect progress toward the sprint goal and adapt the sprint backlog as necessary. D. To review the work completed in the previous day and plan for the next sprint. Answer: C. To inspect progress toward the sprint goal and adapt the sprint backlog as necessary. The daily Scrum is a 15-minute event for the developers, held daily during the sprint, to inspect progress toward the sprint goal and adapt the sprint backlog. It is not a status meeting for the Scrum Master, rather, it is a self-managing event where developers coordinate their work and make plans for the next 24 hours. For instance, if unexpected challenges arise, the developers might adjust who works on what or seek help to stay on track for the sprint goal. This daily synchronization helps maintain focus and ensures the team is always moving efficiently towards completing the sprint goal. Remember, the daily Scrum is for the developers, by the developers, to facilitate their daily planning and adaptation. Question 3. What is the primary purpose of the sprint retrospective? A. To inspect the product backlog and adapt it for the upcoming sprint. B. To inspect the increment and adapt the product backlog if needed. C. To inspect how the last sprint went with regards to individuals, interactions, processes, and tools, and to plan improvements. D. To demonstrate the increment to stakeholders and gather feedback. Answer: C. To inspect how the last sprint went with regards to individuals, interactions, processes, and tools, and to plan improvements. The sprint retrospective is a crucial event at the end of each sprint, dedicated to continuous improvement within the Scrum team. Its primary purpose is for the Scrum team to inspect itself, identifying what went well, what could be improved, and what changes to implement in the next sprint to enhance effectiveness. For example, the team might realize that certain communication tools were hindering progress and decide to switch to a different platform. This dedicated time for reflection helps the team become more efficient, enjoyable, and high quality over time. Always view the retrospective as the Scrum team's opportunity for self-improvement and learning. Question 4. When does a new sprint begin? A. Immediately after the sprint review. B. Immediately after the sprint retrospective. C. When the product owner declares the product backlog ready. D. When the Scrum Master gives the approval. Answer: B. Immediately after the sprint retrospective. In Scrum, sprints are consecutive and happen without any gaps in between. A new sprint begins immediately after the conclusion of the previous sprint's retrospective. This continuous flow ensures that the team maintains momentum and focuses on delivering value consistently without interruption. For instance, once the team reflects on the past sprint's process improvements, they immediately transition into planning and executing the next batch of work. Think of it as a continuous cycle where one sprint smoothly transitions into the next, maintaining a steady rhythm of development. Question 5. Which of the following is not an accountability of the Scrum Master? A. Ensuring that the Scrum team adheres to Scrum. B. Maximizing the value of the product. C. Helping the Scrum team remove impediments. D. coaching the developers in self-management and cross-functionality. Answer: B. Maximizing the value of the product. The product owner is solely accountable for maximizing the value of the product, as this involves decisions about what to build based on market and business needs. The Scrum Master's accountabilities, on the other hand, focus on ensuring the Scrum framework is understood and enacted, removing impediments, coaching the team, and facilitating events. For example, while the Scrum Master helps the product owner understand backlog refinement techniques, they do not dictate the order of items or the product vision. Remember, the Scrum Master supports the team's process, while the product owner drives the product's direction and value. Question 6. What is the time box for a sprint planning event for a 1-month sprint? A. 4 hours. B. 8 hours. C. 16 hours. D. No time box, it takes as long as needed. Answer: B. 8 hours. Sprint planning is time-boxed to a maximum of 8 hours for a 1-month sprint. For shorter sprints, the event is usually shorter, proportionally. This time box ensures that the planning process is efficient and focused, preventing it from dragging on unnecessarily. For instance, if a team is having a 2-week sprint, their sprint planning would typically be limited to 4 hours. The time box helps the team remain disciplined and decide on a realistic amount of work for the upcoming sprint within a set time frame. Always remember that Scrum events have specific time boxes to promote efficiency and focus. Question 7. Who creates the definition of done? A. The product owner. B. The Scrum Master. C. The developers. D. The developers, in collaboration with the product owner and Scrum Master. Answer: C. The developers. The definition of done is created by the developers, as they are the ones performing the work and are ultimately responsible for the quality and completeness of the increment. While the product owner and Scrum Master may contribute to discussions or help clarify, the accountability for defining done rests with the developers to ensure they commit to producing a high-quality, usable increment. For example, developers might agree that done means code is peer-reviewed, tested, and integrated. This shared understanding of done ensures transparency and consistency in the quality of the product increment. Question 8. The 3 pillars of empiricism, which Scrum is founded upon, are: A. Transparency, inspection, and adaptation. B. Planning, execution, and review. C. Requirements, design, and implementation. D. People, process, and product. Answer: A. Transparency, inspection, and adaptation. Scrum is fundamentally an empirical process, meaning it relies on experience and decision-making based on what is observed. The 3 pillars that uphold empiricism in Scrum are transparency, inspection, and adaptation. Transparency ensures that the process and work are visible to those performing the work and those receiving the work, allowing for inspection. Inspection involves regularly checking progress towards agreed-upon goals, like the sprint goal. Adaptation is about making adjustments based on what is inspected, changing course if needed to optimize future results. For example, if during a sprint review, stakeholders discover a feature isn't meeting their needs, inspection, the product owner might adjust the product backlog, adaptation, to reflect this, relying on the visible work, transparency. Question 9. What is the primary purpose of the sprint review? A. To inspect the progress toward the sprint goal and adapt the sprint backlog. B. To discuss what went well and what could be improved during the sprint. C. To inspect the increment and adapt the product backlog if needed, and discuss future adaptations. D. To present a formal report to management about the team's performance. Answer: C. To inspect the increment and adapt the product backlog if needed, and discuss future adaptations. The sprint review is a collaborative working session where the Scrum team and stakeholders inspect the increment created during the sprint and assess progress toward the product goal. It's an opportunity to gather feedback, discuss what was done and what wasn't, and collaboratively decide on future actions. For instance, the developers might demonstrate a new feature, and stakeholders could provide immediate feedback, which the product owner might then use to adjust the product backlog. This event fosters transparency and allows for collective decision-making, ensuring the product evolves in the most valuable direction. Question 10. How should the product backlog be ordered? A. By the product owner based on what can be completed fastest. B. By the developers based on technical dependencies. C. By the product owner based on value, risk, size, and dependencies, but ultimately what maximizes value. D. By the Scrum Master to ensure balanced workload. Answer: C. By the product owner based on value, risk, size, and dependencies, but ultimately what maximizes value. The product backlog is ordered by the product owner, and while factors like dependencies, risk, and size influence the ordering, the ultimate goal is always to maximize the value delivered. The product owner is accountable for this ordering, ensuring that the most valuable items are at the top, ready for the developers to select during sprint planning. For example, an item might be high value but also high risk, requiring the product owner to weigh these factors when placing it on the backlog. This continuous reordering is a key part of the product owner's accountability to optimize the product's value. Question 11. What does it mean for a Scrum team to be self-managing? A. The team members assign tasks to each other during the daily Scrum. B. The team decides how to accomplish the work within the sprint without external direction. C. The team independently sets its own sprint goal and product goal. D. The team manages its own budget and resources without oversight. Answer: B. The team decides how to accomplish the work within the sprint without external direction. A self-managing Scrum team means that the developers collectively decide how to best accomplish the work they have committed to within the sprint. They determine who does what, when, and how, without being directed by external managers or the Scrum Master. For example, if a team has committed to delivering a specific feature, they collaboratively decide the best technical approach and distribute the work among themselves. This empowers the developers to leverage their expertise and adapt their approach as needed to achieve the sprint goal. Question 12. Who is responsible for promoting and supporting Scrum by helping everyone understand Scrum theory, practices, rules, and values? A. The product owner. B. The developers. C. The Scrum Master. D. The project manager. Answer: C. The Scrum Master. The Scrum Master is the servant leader responsible for establishing Scrum as defined in the Scrum Guide. This includes coaching the Scrum team and the broader organization on Scrum theory, practices, rules, and values. For example, if a team member is struggling with self-management, the Scrum Master might provide guidance or facilitate a discussion to help them understand the concept better. The Scrum Master acts as a coach and facilitator, ensuring the team and organization embrace and benefit from the empirical nature of Scrum. Question 13. Which Scrum event provides an opportunity to inspect the increment and adapt the product backlog? A. The sprint planning. B. The daily Scrum. C. The sprint review. D. The sprint retrospective. Answer: C. The sprint review. The sprint review is specifically designed for inspecting the increment and adapting the product backlog as needed. During this event, the Scrum team presents the done increment to key stakeholders, gathers their feedback, and discusses what was achieved and what changes might be necessary for future sprints. For instance, if the increment demonstrates a feature that is not quite what the stakeholders envisioned, the product owner might reprioritize items or add new ones to the product backlog based on this feedback. This collaborative inspection ensures the product remains aligned with stakeholder needs and the product goal. Question 14. What is the sprint goal? A. A detailed plan of all tasks to be completed in the sprint. B. A high-level objective for the sprint that provides coherence to the work. C. A list of product backlog items selected for the sprint. D. The total effort estimated for the sprint. Answer: B. A high-level objective for the sprint that provides coherence to the work. The sprint goal is a single, concise objective for the sprint, created during sprint planning, that gives the developers flexibility to achieve it. It provides coherence and focus to the sprint work, acting as a compass for the developers when they encounter unexpected challenges or need to make decisions about the sprint backlog. For example, a sprint goal might be, enable users to securely log in, which allows the developers to decide the best way to implement this, rather than rigidly following a detailed task list. The sprint goal reinforces flexibility and self-management within the sprint. Question 15. What happens if the developers determine they cannot complete the work selected for a sprint? A. The sprint goal must be cancelled immediately. B. They should inform the product owner and collaboratively renegotiate the scope with stakeholders. C. The Scrum Master must add more developers to the team. D. They should work overtime until all selected items are complete. Answer: B. They should inform the product owner and collaboratively renegotiate the scope with stakeholders. If developers discover they cannot complete the work selected for a sprint, they should immediately communicate this to the product owner. The product owner and developers then collaborate to renegotiate the scope of the sprint backlog, possibly removing or adding items, while ensuring the sprint goal remains intact or is revised accordingly. For instance, if a critical technical dependency arises, the product owner might agree to decope a less critical feature to preserve the sprint goal. This process emphasizes flexibility and collaboration within the fixed timebox of the sprint. Question 16. What is the primary way the Scrum Master serves the product owner? A. By ordering the product backlog items for them. B. By managing the product backlog to ensure it is clear and transparent. C. By ensuring that goals, scope, and product domain are understood by everyone. D. By making sure the product owner attends all Scrum events. Answer: C. By ensuring that goals, scope, and product domain are understood by everyone. The Scrum Master serves the product owner primarily by helping ensure that the product goal, sprint goal, and product backlog items are well understood by the Scrum team and the wider organization. This involves coaching the product owner on effective product backlog management, helping establish empirical product planning, and facilitating stakeholder collaboration. For example, the Scrum Master might coach the product owner on techniques for crafting clear product backlog items or explain the importance of transparent goals to stakeholders. The Scrum Master ensures the product owner's accountabilities are supported, not performed for them. Question 17. Which statement about the sprint backlog is true? A. It contains all product backlog items that will be delivered in the increment. B. It is a forecast by the developers of the functionality that will be in the next increment and the work needed to deliver that functionality. C. It is created by the product owner at the beginning of the sprint. D. It is fixed and cannot be changed during the sprint. Answer: B. It is a forecast by the developers of the functionality that will be in the next increment and the work needed to deliver that functionality. The sprint backlog is a forecast by the developers about what functionality will be in the next increment and the work necessary to deliver that functionality. It is highly flexible and can be adapted by the developers throughout the sprint as they learn more. For example, developers might discover a more efficient way to implement a feature and adjust their tasks accordingly. It is not a commitment to deliver everything on the list, but rather a plan that evolves as the sprint progresses, driven by the developer's self-management. Question 18. What is the role of management in Scrum? A. They direct the Scrum team's daily activities. B. They define the sprint goal for the Scrum team. C. They remove impediments for the Scrum team. D. They support the Scrum Master and product owner and help enable self-managing teams. Answer: D. They support the Scrum Master and product owner and help enable self-managing teams. In a Scrum environment, traditional management's role shifts from directing work to supporting and enabling the Scrum teams. This involves creating an environment where Scrum teams can thrive, removing organizational impediments that are beyond the team's control, and fostering a culture of empiricism and self-management. For instance, management might ensure the Scrum team has access to necessary resources or protect them from external distractions. Their focus is on nurturing the Agile mindset and removing system-level blockers, not micromanaging the team. Question 19. What does the increment refer to in Scrum? A. The total sum of all product backlog items completed since the start of the project. B. The sum of all the product backlog items done during a sprint and the value of the increments of all previous sprints. C. The new features added to the product during a single sprint. D. The portion of the product backlog that the product owner plans to deliver in the next release. Answer. B. The sum of all the product backlog items done during a sprint and the value of the increments of all previous sprints. The increment is the sum of all done product backlog items created during a sprint and the value of the increments from all previous sprints. It is a concrete step toward the product goal and must be usable, meaning it is in a releasable state regardless of whether the product owner chooses to release it. For example, if a team has completed features A and B in previous sprints, and in the current sprint completes feature C, the increment now includes A, B, and C, all potentially releasable. Each increment builds upon the previous ones, ensuring a continuously evolving and valuable product. Question 20. When is a product backlog item considered done? A. When the developers think it is ready to be shown at the sprint review. B. When all work necessary to meet the definition of done has been completed. C. When the product owner accepts it. D. When the quality assurance team has tested it. Answer. B. When all work necessary to meet the definition of done has been completed. A product backlog item is considered done only when it adheres to the definition of done, which is a formal description of the state of the increment when it meets the quality measures required for the product. This ensures transparency and a shared understanding of what it means for work to be truly complete and ready for potential release. For example, if the definition of done includes unit tested and integrated, then a feature is not done until both those criteria are met. The definition of done ensures consistent quality and usability of the increment. Question 21. Which of the following is not a Scrum value? A. Focus. B. Commitment. C. Respect. D. Control. Answer. D. Control. The 5 Scrum values are commitment, focus, openness, respect, and courage. These values are essential for the Scrum team to embody and for successful application of the Scrum framework. Control is not a Scrum value. Instead, Scrum promotes self-management and empiricism, which reduces the need for external control. For example, team members show commitment by dedicating themselves to achieving the sprint goal, and focus by concentrating on the work of the sprint. Embracing these values helps teams build trust and work more effectively together. Question 22. What is the optimal size for a development team, now called developers? A. 3 to 9 members, excluding the product owner and Scrum Master. B. No less than 3, no more than 9 members, including the product owner and Scrum Master. C. 5 to 11 members. D. As small as possible while ensuring enough diverse skills to complete the sprint. Answer. A. 3 to 9 members, excluding the product owner and Scrum Master. The optimal size for the developers within a Scrum team is typically 3 to 9 members, excluding the product owner and Scrum Master. This size ensures that the team is large enough to possess all the necessary skills to deliver an increment each sprint, but small enough to remain agile, communicate effectively, and maintain self-management. For instance, a team of 15 developers might struggle with coordination and daily synchronization compared to a team of 7. Larger teams often incur too much coordination overhead, while smaller teams might lack the diverse skills needed to deliver a valuable increment within a sprint. Question 23. Who is accountable for the product backlog? A. The developers. B. The Scrum Master. C. The product owner. D. The product owner and the developers equally. Answer: C. The product owner. The product owner is solely accountable for the product backlog, including its content, availability, and ordering. While others may contribute to its contents, and the developers will refine items within it, the product owner holds the ultimate accountability for its effectiveness in maximizing product value. For example, the product owner decides which items are added or removed, and in what order, based on their understanding of market needs and business value. This clear accountability ensures a single point of decision-making for the product's direction. Question 24. What happens during sprint planning if the team determines it has too much or too little work for the sprint? A. The sprint goal must be changed to accommodate the work. B. The product owner must adjust the product backlog items selected for the sprint. C. The developers and product owner renegotiate the selected product backlog items until a realistic forecast is achieved. D. The Scrum Master tells the team what to commit to. Answer: C. The developers and product owner renegotiate the selected product backlog items until a realistic forecast is achieved. During sprint planning, if the developers determine they have selected too much or too little work for the sprint, they collaborate with the product owner to renegotiate the selected product backlog items. This ensures that the team arrives at a realistic forecast for what can be achieved within the sprint timebox while still upholding the sprint goal. For example, if the developers realize a task is more complex than initially thought, they might remove a lower priority item with the product owner's agreement. This collaborative adjustment process reflects the self-managing nature of the developers and the product owner's accountability for value. Question 25. The Scrum Master ensures that the daily Scrum happens and that developers keep it within the 15-minute time box. What else is the Scrum Master accountable for regarding the daily Scrum? A. Ensuring that only the developers are speaking. B. Facilitating the daily Scrum if requested or needed. C. Telling the developers what questions to answer. D. Reporting daily progress to management. Answer: B. Facilitating the daily Scrum if requested or needed. While the daily Scrum is for the developers to inspect and adapt their progress, the Scrum Master ensures the event happens and that the 15-minute time box is observed. Beyond this, the Scrum Master's role is to ensure the developers understand the purpose of the daily Scrum and to facilitate it if the developers request or need assistance. For example, if the team is struggling to maintain focus, the Scrum Master might step in to guide the conversation back to the sprint goal. The Scrum Master does not lead the daily Scrum but serves the team by ensuring they get the most value from it.